Hello everybody, welcome back to Paisley Acres. My name is Morgan and it is one of my favorite times of year right now. We are headed into August, which means it's still very hot here in the desert, but it means that we can start planting a lot of things and really start preparing for our fall gardens. And with that, the other day, actually it was last week, I was able to pull out my tower garden and reassemble it, and I posted a picture on my Instagram, and I also did a video kind of vlogging the experience of how I get it ready for fall. And with that came a lot of questions about the tower garden. So I wanted to film another video for you guys, really explaining the pros and cons of growing food in the tower garden. Now, this is my third season growing with the tower garden, so I don't know everything about it. I have been able to try a variety of things in my tower garden, so I feel like I have a good idea of some of the benefits and drawbacks to growing with the tower garden. And I really wanted to share my experience as well as some of the research surrounding the tower garden so that if you are considering it, you can make the most educated choice. I also wanted to share the reality of what it's like to actually grow food in an aeroponic system and help you to get a clearer picture of whether or not the tower garden could be a good fit for you. Now, I do want to throw in a quick disclaimer here. I am not in any way affiliated with the Tower Garden or Juice Plus. However, I was in the past. I did sell some of their supplies, so I did earn a small commission of sales back then. However, I do not, at the time of filming this video, have any affiliation with them whatsoever. I feel like that's really important to say so that you know that I'm really giving you an honest, no holds barred review of the tower garden. I just wanted you guys to know that going forward, I don't have any sort of affiliation with them. I'm not getting paid by their company to promote this product. I just wanted to give the most honest and realistic review of the tower garden that I could. For those of you who aren't really familiar with the tower gardening system, I will link a video up here for you guys that I filmed a few months ago. It's actually my most popular video, and that's kind of what really showed me that people are very interested in learning how to garden aeroponically and that it's a really good solution for a lot of people. But like I said, I'll link that video up here for you guys so you can check it out. It really just explains how aeroponic gardening works, how the tower garden works, and it also goes a little bit more in depth on how to start seeds. So if you actually already do have a tower garden, that video will probably be more helpful for you. But if you are considering a tower garden or just want to learn more about aeroponic gardening, this video will be extremely helpful for you. Let's start with the cons first. Now, these aren't necessarily things that are bad about the tower garden. More than anything, these are things that I hear people say when they're hesitant to try the tower garden, or maybe they've tower gardened before and they share some things that maybe they wish were different about the tower garden. So these aren't necessarily things that are cons per se. They're more just drawbacks and things you want to consider before you commit to a tower garden. The first thing that I will bring up that might be viewed as a con is that a lot of the supplies that you need in order to run your tower garden consistently throughout the year can only be bought on the Juice Plus Tower Garden website. These are things like the fertilizer, the pH adjuster, as well as the little black, I believe they're called net pots that the rock wool and the plant actually goes into that you can then insert into your tower garden. A lot of these things you can only buy on the Tower Garden website. Now, I will say there are a lot of other products that you might be able to try using. I know we have tried in the past an off-brand mineral fertilizer, but a lot of these things will hinder the way that your tower garden works. The fertilizer that we got was blue and I believe it was red, and I think that's what caused a lot of the staining and the calcium buildup on my tower garden. So you really want to make sure that you're getting those tower garden supplies straight from the website, but it can be a little bit of a drawback because you have to buy those things there, wait for them to be shipped in, and then be able to use them in your tower garden. It's not like you can just run up the road to your local nursery or Walmart and get the supplies that you need. A lot of these things are patented materials that the tower garden owners own the rights to, so it's not something you can easily find in other places. The second con that I'm going to note is that cleaning your tower garden in between seasons is very important to do. It can just be a little bit cumbersome. Because the tower garden system is aeroponic, there's no dirt or soil involved, so it's not messy per se, but there is a lot of scrubbing involved. Cleaning the tower garden involves taking it apart and cleaning each piece individually before reassembling it, so it can be a little bit tedious, but it's absolutely worth it to keep it clean. The cleaning aspect of it isn't something that I necessarily considered when purchasing the tower garden. The third thing that I'll mention is that although you can technically grow a lot of things in a tower garden system, there are certain plants that are definitely more difficult to grow. So if the tower garden is your sole means of gardening right now, it might not be what you're expecting for things like cucumbers, melons, peppers, and tomatoes, or any plant that grows big and can get very spread out. Personally, I have tried growing peppers, strawberries, a lot of different vining things, as well as tomatoes in the tower garden. And although it worked and I got a great tasting, beautiful, healthy product out of it, it did kind of go a little bit crazy and made it more difficult to keep on top of the maintenance of my tower garden. So if you are planning on growing things like cucumbers, melons, tomatoes, peppers, just make sure you know how to prune those plants and make sure that you stay on top of it so that you can access the other parts of your tower garden. I will also always recommend that anything that you're growing that you know is going to take up more space or get bigger be grown on the bottom slots of your tower garden. Overall, I really enjoyed the tower garden for things like growing herbs and greens more than I do for things that are fruit bearing, just because I find I can grow those things more easily in a garden bed with more space around it. The fourth drawback that might not be a drawback for a lot of people, but is definitely something that I think about a lot when I'm setting up my tower garden. The tower garden needs to be plugged into an outlet. It can't necessarily be incorporated into your existing garden very easily unless you have an extension cord or your garden just happens to be right next to an outlet like on the side of your house. This might not be a big deal to you, especially if you're planning on using your tower garden indoors or off of your patio, but for me at least, I like to have it out in the midst of my garden, and the fact that it has to be plugged in definitely does present a little bit of a challenge. The last and biggest drawback that I hear from a lot of people who are interested in tower gardening is the price. Now, I will say this, Juice Plus has some amazing payment plans that make it very easy to incorporate a tower garden into your life right away, even if you don't have the upfront money for it. However, even just the fact that you're paying that amount over time can sometimes make a lot of people hesitant to pull the trigger on a tower garden. Now, I will say over time, the amount of produce that you'll be able to grow in the tower garden to me is absolutely worth the price to pay for it. I bought mine full price and I just paid the installments on the payment plan, and we have not ever regretted buying our tower garden. However, I will say as well, as kind of a caveat to this, you can almost always find tower gardens online secondhand on places like Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, and LetGo, and those are great options if you do not want to or can't afford to pay the payment plan. Now, I do not at all believe that Juice Plus or Tower Garden is like hiking up the prices of these things just because of the demand. This is the same system that's used by things like NASA and huge agencies that want to be able to produce food in less than ideal circumstances. And Tower Garden is like the leading technology of aeroponic gardening. So to be able to have that in your home is really an honor. And I'm not saying this like, oh, we could afford a tower garden, because it really was a stretch for us at the time. But being able to use that technology is like really amazing. So you are getting the best of the best. And again, I have no affiliation with them whatsoever. I'm not getting paid to say this. I just really honestly enjoy growing food in my tower garden. So to me, it has been worth it every single penny. But I will let you know that they are expensive. Depending on the type of tower garden that you pick, you're going to be paying anywhere between $50 to $80 a month for the tower garden. But that includes your tower garden, your rock wool, your net pots, your seeds, your vermiculite, your mineral system, your pH adjustment, your timer, your pump. So you really are getting so many things for that $50 a month. Tower gardens also have a life expectancy of between 10 to 12 years. So if you consider the price that you're paying and then consider the amount of organic homegrown greens and produce that you'll be able to grow in 10 to 12 years, I think it's pretty much a no-brainer that you are going to be able to make that tower garden pay for itself and then some with the product that you're getting out of it. All right, now on to the pros. Now the biggest pro for me at least is the fact that aeroponic growing systems, particularly the tower garden, are known to have on average a 30% increased yield compared to traditional gardening methods. Now that simply put just means that you can grow more produce. This statistic was taken from an independent study, which I will link down below, but they said, and I quote, "Plants grown in the aeroponic system, aka the tower garden, had a higher yield as compared to those grown in the soil." So basically how they found this is they grew a variety of crops traditionally and they grew them in the tower garden and then compared the yields and got their percentages from that. But like I said, boiling down to the very core of the statistic, it just means that tower gardens are able to grow more food. I'm not sure exactly how this pans out, but I believe that it's a combination of just the fact that their roots are able to grow uninhibited. They are able to get their nutrition directly from the mineral blend. They don't have to sift through the soil to get it. And just a combination of the way that it's, designed lends itself to higher produce yields. Again, there's so much more that I have to learn about aeroponic gardening, but from my limited scope, that's my understanding of how more yields are produced with the tower garden. The second benefit is that you use so much less water in the tower garden system. The tower garden uses up to 98% less water than traditional gardening methods. So basically with the tower garden system, you pour all of your water and mineral blend into a reservoir and it gets pumped up to the top of the tower and then cascades down and nourishes the roots from there. But it cascades right into the reservoir so that you're recycling water again and again, and less water is lost through evaporation. So the tower garden system is very water wise, which is so important these days, especially with a lot of the droughts and water shortages that we're facing across the globe. Third is that you use a lot less fertilizer to get even more produce. The exact statistic is that tower gardens use up to 60% less fertilizer and reduces pesticide use by 100% because you don't have to use any pesticides on your tower garden. This statistic has kind of a caveat. If you are growing inside, of course, you're not going to need to use any pesticides. I grow using my tower garden outside, so occasionally I will use some organic pest control methods such as neem oil or soapy water to control pests, but overall I have never had to use any pesticides on my tower garden at all. The fourth benefit of using tower garden is it's actually scientifically proven to make your crops taste better. Now I know that seems like a kind of hard to quantify measurement because I know that taste is subjective, but in that same study that found that tower garden yields increased by 30%, they also found that the produce grown in the tower garden had a higher concentration of flavonoids, phenolics, and antioxidants, which basically means that it has more flavor components and antioxidants. So the food is going to taste better and be healthier for you. I can vouch for this personally. The cilantro that I grew in my tower garden was so strong and so potent that I used way too much of it in a recipe on accident just because I was using what I was used to, the quantity that I was used to was store-bought cilantro, and it was just way too much because the cilantro that I had grown in my tower garden just tasted so much better. Homegrown organic produce is so good for you. It tastes so much better. The things that I pull out of my garden in comparison to the things that I buy at the grocery store, there almost is no comparison. It just tastes so much better. But the tower garden in particular is a wonderful way to get healthy, wonderful tasting produce. The fifth pro, and the thing that I think draws a lot of people to the tower garden, is it is the most space-wise or space-friendly way to grow food. Because you're growing all of your food on a vertical tower, you don't have to worry about having a huge space for garden beds. And this makes the tower garden a great option for people who need to grow their food indoors with the use of grow lights, or who only have a small apartment or patio balcony. I especially love the tower garden when we were renting in a very small backyard because I really didn't have a lot of space. So the space that I had in my small garden, I needed to use that space to grow things like root vegetables and other things that you cannot grow in the tower garden. But the tower garden was able to cover pretty much anything else, and I was able to get a huge yield off of a very small space. Now that I do have a little bit more space, like I said, I love to use my tower garden to supplement my existing garden. garden. My plan for fall is to grow all of my greens in my tower garden and save my garden bed space for things that take up a little bit more space and things that are grown in the ground, such as root vegetables, corn, and vining varieties. So overall, has my tower garden experience been worth it, or was my investment in a tower garden worth it? I have to say absolutely. Not only have I learned so much about how food is grown using an aeroponic system, but I just truly enjoyed being able to use the tower garden, being able to harvest from it, and just the experience of growing food in a new and innovative way has really fueled my passion for gardening and made me want to learn more about it. Like I said, I know a tower garden can be a pretty big investment, especially I know for us at the time that we bought it, that was really more than I maybe wanted to be paying per month on a garden, but it has paid back itself in full already, not only through the amount of produce that we're able to harvest from it and the flavor and the health content of that produce, but also just in the experience of being able to grow things aeroponically as well. Let me know if you guys have any questions at all about tower gardening. I'm planning on taking you along through my journey this fall as we grow things in our tower garden. So I'm sure you'll see a lot more videos from me on the tower garden. But if you have any questions in specific, let me know down in the comments below. I do my best to respond to every single comment. I would love to know what you guys would like to learn more about when it comes to gardening so that I can tailor my content to you. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would consider subscribing and liking this video. It goes such a long way in supporting my small little channel here. And for those of you who are subscribed, thank you so much. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.